YouTube. I hope all y'all are having a blessed day. It is a rainy and cool day here today on the mountain. Today is Thursday, August 3rd, and it only got up to 70 degrees today. But the humidity is like, I feel like I've been hosed down. So the chickens won't be running about today because I think we have some thunderstorms coming in. So we are here today with our next little project. And today I am going to be doing a pattern that my pal Suze from Revelation Quilts has designed. It's using a jelly roll and it's a lot of fun. You're using one jelly roll, and the perfect jelly roll has two of every single fabric. So you have 40 strips and there's two of a kind throughout the entire jelly roll. That's how this works because we're going to be splitting it. So rather than trying to explain it to you, I'm just going to take you over to the cutting table and I'm going to show you what we have. This is a lovely jelly roll that was by Benartex, and it was beautiful jelly roll. However, some of the fabrics were not duplicates. So what I've done is I had a second jelly roll of batiks that I got from the Suze quilting guys. I took that were similar to replace the singletons that I took out of here. Hopefully your jelly roll has two of each fabric. And what you're going to do is you are going to separate them out into two piles. This fabric the fabric in the jelly roll didn't work. So I took these two pieces of jelly roll and I inserted them. These were a match, and then I had another two, and this, like I said, I had several that were very, very similar, so I'm using those. And you want to leave it in the same order that it came out the jelly roll, because they usually have them laid out very, very nicely, and maybe not a rainbow, but you know, going through all the colors and the light colors together. And Suze is calling this quilt Crossingsz. So the way this is going to work is I'm going to put this pile over here. I'm going to forget about it for a little while. This pile we are going to take over to our sewing machine, and leaving it in this order, I am going to sew every single strip together into one big strip set. And the way that we're going to do that is we're going to take these two and sew them together in one direction, okay? And then we're going to sew this one, but if you're sewing in this direction with one, then you're going to go in the other direction, and that will prevent your quilt from skewing. And if you've ever made a watercolor quilt, you know what I'm talking about when I say skewing. You have all these itty bitty little tiny squares, and you sew them all in one direction all the way throughout the entire quilt. And when you get to your quilt, it is cockeyed. So rather than being a square, it's kind of like this. Because as you keep sewing, the sewing machine and the feed dogs keep pushing the fabric and it gets skewed. So to avoid any skewing, I'm going to sew them in opposite directions. So I'll sew this one to this one going this way. When I go to add this one, I'm going to go in this direction. And you're going to do that throughout the entire stack that you have here. And you are going to press your seams all in the same direction. All right, here we go. I am taking that one and this one, put them right sides together, and this is a batik, so it's not, you can use either side. And I have my 1/4 inch foot with the plow on, and we are just going to zip on down. Okay, that is done. And we take it out of the machine, and we do not have to worry about finger pressing. That's a very, very long seam to finger press, and it would be kind of painful. My hands really hurt. I'm going to sew. I went down this time, so I'm going to go up the next time. I'm getting my next piece, and I'm keeping them in order, okay, matching the edge. And the beauty of this pattern is that there's no waste. You'll have a little extra left over, but you can use that in the border. I'm going to turn the camera off, muscle through this, and again now we're going to change direction again, but we're going to keep everything in order. I did want to pop in here and show you my progress so far, and I did want to give you a couple of tips. If it makes you feel more secure, you can of course use pins or those little sew clips, but what I do is I use my fingers. So I have everything lined up here and I just go. Nothing is moved, everything's the way it's supposed to be, and then I do it again. And you're only working with a small section at a time, not the entire strip. And it just takes the stress away from sewing a straight seam and worrying about things shifting. You know, I'm not a pin person, and I just find that this works very nicely. And I'm not pulling. Don't pull and yank on your strips. Otherwise, your piece will be warped and it will ripple and it'll look like a roller coaster, and that's not what we're going for. I'm not applying any pressure at all other than just to hold the pieces together. So now I've sewn this way, so now on the next piece I'm going to be sewing in the opposite direction. So I take it and I turn it around and I grab our next piece, right sides together. Keeping it real, I made a mistake. Like the fourth piece I put on here, I sewed with the seam on the front, so I had to tear it out and do it again. Just, you know, being honest and letting you know I'm not perfect. Only the Lord is perfect. Not to worry about it. If you have to stop and rip it out, it's no big deal. Have a cup of coffee or a cookie and just relax. Just remember that even if you have a stitch or two that's crooked, this quilt will still keep somebody warm, allow them to feel like they are loved. And that's the whole point of quilting. I have this whole thing sewn together and it's just beautiful. I did make some changes. I was having some of the batiks almost next to each other, so I just changed that, and then on the other stack I made sure that it matched. Apologize about my nails. I haven't been up to doing them. I've been trying new things and I'm just exhausted. All right, so I have this folded in half and I have the edges aligned, and I've ironed the whole thing all in one direction, and it's laying flat. There's no wrinkles. And now I am taking my ruler and I'm going to cut off the salvages, and I'm going to cut at the 22-inch mark, and I'm going to use my weight and I'm going to run through that twice just to make sure all the seams got. What we need to do now is we need to cut these into 2-inch strips. Lining up the 2-inch, lining up the 2-inch, putting the weight on here and cutting. And I made a mistake. This happens to me a lot and I don't know how to stop it from happening. I veered off. That is unfortunate, so I'm going to have to re-straighten, but we only need 19 strips. I'm going to very carefully straighten this up again. So now it's straight again, and yes, I did lose a little, but that's okay. If you have that same problem, just go slow. So again, we're going to cut this into 2-inch strips. Go slow. Make sure your rotary cutter is on the ruler. I kept going off. To prevent that from happening, I remembered that I had purchased this Shape Cut Plus ruler from June Taylor Inc., and it has slots in it every 1/2 inch. It did not fit in half, so I folded my strip set into thirds, and now it fits. And now I am going to take this and I'm going to line up the edge with the edge here. This will be the next cut. This will be 2-inch. So I'm going to go 1-inch, 2-inch. Not quite getting to the edge, so I'll have to clean that up after I'm done cutting. But for now, I'm going to go and do down every 2-inch mark, and I'll fix those cuts when I pull the ruler off. That was 12, I believe. So now I'm doing the 10. So now I'm just going to use a smaller ruler, this here ruler, and I'm just going to go down and finish the cuts. You only need 19 of these strips. So this is 19, and this lovely chunk is left over, and I am not going to waste that. I will save it and then use it with the leftover batiks to make a border. We are going to start putting this together, and if you notice, this matches this one, this matches this one, and so on and so on and so on. So we're going to start with one of the solid strips, and we are going to sew this unit to it. We're going to do that there so that the salvage is off, and we are going to sew these together. And when you press the seams, you want to press the seams towards the solid piece. Otherwise you have to deal with all these all these crazy seams. If we go all the way down to the other end, you can see that we have quite a bit of space. I was thinking, well, I could just add another strip, but you can't because the strip isn't long enough. Suze is a real sharp cookie. And she did all the math for you on this, which is good because me and math don't get along. So we're going to sew this one here, and then we're going to take the next strip and we're going to sew it here. And then we're going to add one of these, then one of these, all the way down. I am going to sew with this pieces up so I can make sure that all of the seams lay down nicely. And again, we're not pulling, we're not tugging on this, we are just placing the edges flush together and running it through the machine. So as you can see, you don't need pins. Pins are highly overrated unless you've got a lot of seams that you're dealing with. All I'm doing is just using my fingers. And when you iron, you're going to iron so that the seam goes that way onto the big piece. Now we need to do the next piece. And at this point, we will not be able to alternate the direction because we have to match things up once we get to the next piece, and I'll show you that. So as you can see here, I'm sewing onto this and I have all these seams going down so they'll lay nicely under the needle for me. And all I'm doing is matching up these seams and letting it run through the machine. So you can see our first 3 pieces, and now it's time to add another one of the strip sets. And we're going to line up the edges. So we'll go back up here to the top. And we are going to look at this seam right here, and I will zoom in with the camera. We want to line up that seam with this sew line. You can just see the stitching and it's lined up with that intersection, and that is what you're going to do. Now of course you can pin if you so desire. So I'm just lining up the stitching line right there and it matches. Slide it under your machine and you are off to the races. Again, we are not going to pull on these strips. We're going to fluff. And we're just lining up the edges. And you can periodically check and make sure that the seams are still aligned, and if they need a little bit of coercion, you can apply that. And you won't have to worry about things going too far astray because we are lining these up as we sew. The next strip will be this one, and then we will be going back to another strip set. And we are going to continue in that fashion. This is where we're going to stop for the evening. I am dead tired. I can barely lift my hands anymore. I still have to trim it up, and when we come back, we're going to trim it up. We'll design the borders and sew them on, and I think it's absolutely stunning. And if you don't know who Suze is, go over to Revelation Quilts, and I will leave a link down in the description for her channel, and go give her some love. Tell her I sent you, to say Melissa from 70 Acres Studio sent me. And I think it's real pretty. I love the way it turned out, and it's a lot of fun to look at. And I think the batiks really worked. They are evenly distributed, so I think they look real nice. My hair is a mess. I have a hair appointment on Tuesday, so that's good. So I want to thank you all so very much for watching. I want to thank you for all your subscriptions and for your comments and your thumbs up. Your comments just make my day. They are the highlight of my days, and I so enjoy reading them and responding to you. I'd also like to ask that you go over and check out my website on coffee, and I will have a link at the end screen and down in the description below. I have several memberships that you can select from, and I also have lots of patterns and other things available for sale. And I would love it if you would join the Discord that we have. Again, the link will be there. It'll be on my coffee site. I would love to be able to see what you're working on. to see what kind of quilts that you're doing. And if you went out and found the Lord today, I would love it if you would share that with us and get to know you all a little bit better. Thank you for watching, and I will see you right back here at 70 Acres Studio with our next little project, which will be putting the borders on this lovely quilt. So thanks, Suze, for the inspiration and the pattern. It's absolutely lovely. I love it. I love you all so very, very much. You mean the world to me. So you have a very blessed day, a very, very blessed week ahead, and I will see you right back here at 70 Acres Studio very, very soon. God bless.
Good night, Elizabeth.
Good night, John Boy.